1 and 6pence a week.
84 hours a week out £2.4p.
£2 a week for 42 hours.
And we used to get £1.25 an hour.
And they ain't £2.50 wages.
15 shillings a week, 75 pence.
5 shillings a week.
12 and 6pence.
£1, 1 old penny.
About 17 or 18 bob, I should think.
Well, I worked most of my working life in Grimsby, starting off on the Grange farm, where the Grange estate is now.
My first job when I was about 12, I worked on Brown's Rock Shop on the promenade in Cleethorpes.
I went to Guy & Smith's for about 5 months, and an odd job boy, doing anything, bits running about.
I worked for Cribs. You won't know where it is. It's in Bethlehem Street, and it was a fruiterer, yeah. And I had a carrier bike, and I used to take 2 tomatoes to some posh people's houses.
When I first left school, I got a job as an errand boy at the Ladies and Gentlemen's Outfitters in St Peter's Avenue.
From cleaning the windows, swelling the porch out, taking the shutters up with Thursday afternoon off, because we had to wait Saturdays, and what do you do Thursday afternoon? And then we had, we did fetching parcels, carrying parcels, going to post office, taking round the departments. 2
shops, the ladies' gents and gents shop, with 2 doorways onto the same steps that led in. And I was the errand boy for those with my own bike, which was a bike with dropped handlebars, so I had to take them out and turn them around so I could get a parcel between the handlebars and prop it on the seat.
1940, I was an errand girl. Carruthers shop down the Abbey Road. It was one of those bikes you might not have seen, a big square and a basket in it.
Well, my father was rather annoyed about that. So he eventually screwed their arm to paying me £1 shilling a week for use of the bicycle.
Took the groceries to different houses, and then twice I was stopped at top of Two Till because I hadn't got me identity card on me. Well, at that age, we weren't given one. And the second time I went to the town hall about it, I thought, So I went and told Mr. Carruthers what had happened, and he said, oh, well, we'll give you another job, as well as delivering groceries, which I used to weigh sugar, margarine and lard.
Yeah, delivering clothing people had bought or that they wanted to just have a look at, sort of thing, and take back. I even went as far as the last road in Wheelsby Road, before you get to the cenotaph, with a big fur coat in a box on a Saturday night at 9 o'clock at night in the dark.
My sister, when I got home, she said, oh, I'm just going to the fish shop. So I said, oh, all right. She said, can I go in that bike? So I said, yeah. And somebody pinched it. And we got it back, and I went and put it on Crib's front and walked away. Never went back to work anymore.
A grocer's shop on Corporation Road.
What we was responsible for was skinning the cheese and slicing it up into portions and weighing the sugar in them old blue bags.
And we had blue bags for £1, brown ones for £2, and scoop, weigh it that way, and then fold it and put it ready for the shelves.
Well, I served customers, weighed different things up, different things, sugar, and then if everything was loose, we had to weigh it. I used to dress the 2 windows, clean the windows inside and out.
Lard was, it was grease-proof paper as we'd call it now, but it was thicker than what we wrapped butter and margarine in. We did £half and £1 packs. But then they found out people was getting more £1/4, which is 4 ounces. So then we had to do them.
But it was all delivered, and the bacon came in like sacks and things like that. In fact, I don't think that would be allowed today either.
Especially at Christmas when it was dried fruit, because everything was rationed, you see, then. And we used to have to weigh it up. I used to hate doing the fruit because it was all sticky, you know. And there was soda, flour, rice. We had everything, you know, to weigh up, and butter we used to weigh up, and lard.
A wire, and each end of the wire was a piece of wood, and you connected it to some rods there, and you pulled it to cut there till you got it. Well, after so many times, you knew how much a half a pound or a pound was, but you still had to cut off to make it, and it had to be dead on that weight. 16 ounces pound, 8 ounces half a pound, 4 ounces a quarter.
Weighing it up on a Monday, well, it was hard work really, you know. But, and of course at first they didn't have fridges like they had, you know, because, and they used to have the bacon on from the ceiling in the back, and they used to have what they called stocking, it was like net, and there was all the time looking for flies, you know. It's hard to realise now, you know, how it was.
On one occasion when we opened the sack, the bacon was covered in maggots.
Well, we used to go to the corner shop and get what we want when we was kids. I mean, all the shopkeepers knew the kiddies' names anyway, in them days.
Well, people were hard up then, don't forget, because we had a lady that used to come in and we had a tea. It was only tuppence halfpenny, old tuppence halfpenny, for a quarter, but she couldn't afford that. So they used to give her, you know, half the packet one week and the other half the next. So that's how hard up some people were.
Well, I worked on this market, and then I worked across the road at what was Tate's Egg and Bacon House.
You had more variety. I mean, Lawson and Stockdale's used to go in there and, you know, the smell of the deli and the coffee, it was wonderful, wasn't it? And you used to enjoy going round the shops, but everything's the same now. I mean, you go from here, you go to Manchester, you go to Sheffield, Leeds, it's just the same.
All we sold was like a breakfast, you know, bacon and egg. You could have gammon and chips and pineapple and things like that. And then we had cakes, cream cakes and things, you know. But it was mainly, I was cooking, I wasn't serving. I was in the kitchen sweating because it was ever such a tiny kitchen. And one way I'd got the grills and turned round and there's the chip pans and, you know.
They had shops for everything. You went to one shop and bought something, then you went out to the next shop and bought something else. Like, if you went to a vegetable shop where you bought vegetables and you went to a provision shop, and then nobody sold everything. I mean, if you wanted shoes, you went to a shoe shop. If you wanted a suit, you went down Freeman Street. It was full of Burton's tailor shops. Everybody had a suit them days. And when you went out Saturday night, you went out in a suit.
You know, you got your boots, things, you went to the guy and he'd do at the cobblers, everything was done there. Now people wouldn't dream of taking shoes to cobblers, you know, because I think we're in a society now where things have been made cheaper. And yes, great if you're on low wages and being able to afford things, but we've also, you know, we no longer produce things in this country.
Loose beer in jugs, they used to go for it in a jug. You could see them going, men and women, down the street with a jug, and we didn't query it because it was live. And then if the men went, I don't think they got home with a full jug because they're stuck in the passages because we see them. We was told not to stay long in a passage where men was stood with jugs, and we didn't. And they never bothered you if you walked past them. Whereas they couldn't do, well, they wouldn't do it now, would they? But as I say, not many men went home with a full jug. They'd had a mouthful. It was fun. It really was.
Biscuit factory at Greatcoats. Oh, I should say about 500 were there. And we loved it. It was like going to a party every day because we just loved it. Everybody got on all right.
Cream biscuits, chocolate biscuits, you name it, they made it.
Well, there's cream crackers, digestive.
They made the biscuits there and I worked in the transport department, what we called the loading bay.
The machine washed tins of biscuits, but we had to get them ready for it. Then I went to make the cardboard boxes, and then I went to solder the army tins.
It was hot. There used to be women fainting about, you know. And the forewoman used to stand her up.
Well, hard crackers for the soldiers or sailors, whatever. They were put in a tin that size with a square one with a round lid and put in packets. We put a lid on and then soldered an extra lid around the top.
On occasions, they used to come out on fire, you know, when the oven got a bit too hot.
Oh, the ovens was ever so long. I don't know how long, but they were.
Great coats, as you know, it's out in the country. So there was a lot of birds about, so they couldn't have the windows open. In case the bird, don't matter about us birds that was in the packet, as long as the birds outside didn't get in.
And they just showed you what to do. You got a bit of training, you got a bit of practice, but I mean, I can't say that you were there for a year training, not like they do now for apprenticeships.
We used to have blisters on every finger. And they used to have those white plasters on it, packing away like, because they just come straight out the ovens.
And you had wire in a roll and put naturally the wire on and sewed it around like that. And move the tin round and carry on. Because they were going a long way, those tins, so they had to be sealed and kissed and delivered.
You put the 10 tins down, and when the next order came along and it wanted another 10, their first tin was turned round to indicate that that was a new order for them. But it worked. It was all done by hand. Passed from one to another into the van.
We worked with our hands in them days, but now it's all this, isn't it?
My very first job was a company down Patrick Street called Lloyd Cars, and I had no idea who they were, what they did when I went for the job. Then were the days when you could walk in and out of a job from one afternoon and think, I don't like this, and straight into another one.
Grimsby used to have a car manufacturer, the name of which was Lloyd's Cars.
All the smelly oil and the grit and the grime really wasn't for me, and I enjoyed the time there. I have no idea the names of the people there. I remember a young lady got the first miniskirt I'd ever seen. I remember her legs quite well, even now, bless her.
It was in Patrick Street, which is off 8th Avenue.
Well, I was basically a gopher. You know, they did send me to the stores a few times, asked the storeman for a long wait, yes, and left-handed hammer and a set of sky hooks. He used to see me coming in and say, what is it this time, Trevor? Set of sky hooks, please. Yes. Tell him back we've run, go back and tell him we've run out. And until eventually, after about the first week, I caught on.
And they produced a small two-seater sports car after the war for some time.
But I worked in a section which was drilling holes in metal components and big lathes. And they didn't let me anywhere near the lathes, but when I was drilling holes in these little rods. Not very successfully, apparently, because they was all returned. And I drilled them too deep.
And there still are Lloyd's cars running about in the classic car, what we call it, scene. I've seen one at Waltham Windmill, actually.
And I do understand, as far as I know, there's one or two left in the world. So they'll be quite valuable now. Came from Little Grimsby, which makes a bit of pride for us, I think, really.
So, and Father said to me in the late 1950s, whose car's that? I said, what do you mean? He said, I know every car in Grimsby. And you realise what a small number of cars there were, and how that has changed so much. I mean, probably by the 60s it really started to blow, and that's made the enormous difference, and he lost his connection on that.
In my day there was 2 founds in Grimsby. There was Harper Phillips and Fowell and Holden. Fowell and Holden's still going in Railway Street. And Harper Phillips, my dad worked there for about 25 years, and I can picture it now. Black, dusty, hot.
And, my father in 1959 had just built the premises in Briggergate, which is now Tukes and Havelock housing. That was his sort of special building. And so I was involved in the motor business there, and Father noticed that across the road in County Motors, a new petrol company had started called Jet. And we had petrol pumps around the showroom front.
He used to have scrap metal and to bring it this furnace, just load this furnace up, and he used to melt the metal. Then they had a big crane on this great big light, used to go in it, and then they used to ladle it in and team it in the moulds. Then there was blokes what used to make the moulds in wood. Then they used to put them into this black sand and ram it all around then to make a pattern. Then they used to take the wooden mould out, and then that was the pattern for the making whatever they made.
Anyway, Father was quite put out. In his office on a Saturday morning, he could watch the police having to control the traffic going across to Jet, because cheap petrol was the thing. So we thought, well, this is a bit of a mug's game, I better get involved in this. So we got into contacts with his friends at Esso and Shell and people, and we set up Bell Oil Operations Limited with the idea of importing petrol from Amsterdam. But we, in fact, never needed to do so. We could always buy it from the Immingham storage. So we started Bell Petrol, and we built up to having 50 filling stations around Lincolnshire.
And the pattern makers, I used to get all sorts. My dad used to get them made, from cricket stumps to bats to sailing boats, anything we wanted. Out there used to make them out of the wood, because they'd made pattern, but they used to make all little bits and pieces.
We'd taken over Fred Lloyd Motors at Nuns Corner, and we just put an autogas unit on. Now, what we didn't realise till later, that was the first autogas delivery unit in the country on a petrol filling station. And it was 1974, and Humberside County Council were highly chuffed, and it was in the national press, of the fact that they had the first properly authorised autogas station.
And then I got a job on the milk round co-op, delivering milk, pushing barrows. That was hard, but you did it.
I left school on Friday, started on Saturday morning. So, because my sister used to work there, that's how I got the job.
I worked at 2 dairies because me and my dad and my sister lived in Victoria Street, and the war was on, and we got bombed. So me and my sister went to live in Park Street, and I got a job at the unit down at Peaks, what do they call it? It was off Clee Road, a dairy. I don't think it's there. Hollyoak Road, I don't think it's there now. It's a school, isn't it? Yeah, it's a school now. But that's there. And then when the house all got, they built it all up again, I went back to live with my dad, and then I went to the Clover Dairies and stopped there all the time till I got married.
We used to fill all the crates up, used to pick 6 bottles up at a time and drop them in each crate. And then we used to pick them up and put them on the stacks. It was heavy work, but it was so enjoyable.
Oh, Nuns Corner was a farm, what it is now a college. It was just fields and a farm, and naturally a track down to the sheds, and that's where the lorries fetched crates of milk, and we had to load barries, big wheels, handles, and push them I pushed it from Nuns Corner around Nunsthorpe. Then what is the swimming baths now in Scath Road? They left me more crates there, Then I loaded and I went up to, in and out to Scather Road up to Louth Road.
We used to have to, they wouldn't take it straight out of the dairy. It had to be in the cold store before, because the milkman had finished by the time we'd finished, because they came in at 3, 4, and they used to be finished at 12 o'clock at the latest. And then we had to wheel all ready for them to collect the milk the next morning.
They used to have the clover milk and sun-fed milk. Well, they're both different. One's homogenised and the other one's sterilised. The sterilised is what you get now, the clover milk, and the other one is what you practically drink, do you know what I mean?
Because it was in 2 shifts, we used to do the 8 till 1 and then there was 1 till 6. Yeah, so, and we worked on a Sunday. Yeah, we got picked up on a Sunday because there was no buses. That was good because we had a good laugh. Yeah.
It was that was interesting because you get to know a lot of people. Just to go down the cemetery gates now. Opposite was gates, and it was warehouse, and you'd have to ask permission to go in there to deliver milk because the inmates, as you call them, was walking around but you was looked after by whoever was at the gate. They walked with you. And then you had to go down to what was it TB hospital down Fieldhouse Lane.
When it was really cold weather, we used to go out where the floats couldn't go out. We used to go out with the lorries. And we used to be knocking at the doors, saying, if you want the milk, you better come and get it because your float won't be down here. So we used to be knocking at the doors. We delivered milk. Did all different kinds of things while I was there.
You just press this thing with your foot and fill the milk bottles up with milk.
Because you even had to, you know when the milkman come back with half crates of milk, we used to have to fill them crates and pick them up and turn them into chains. So it'd go into the chains washer and then it'll go into a machine and then that'll go down into the drains.
I didn't carry, I just filled them up. Yeah, because I was the gaffer's favourite.
If we found a dirty bottle, we'd get 25 pence for that. So we was like orcs.
6:30 till, well, you should be finished by 12. Which we were, but sometimes a bit longer if the people weren't in. Because you think, when you collected the money for the co-op, it wasn't cash, it was white discs. The people got them from the co-op shop and they paid us them. So we just had discs to count. Green for if there was a child under 7, well, it was 5 first, then it went up to 7. That was green, but the other milk was white, tokens.
I had the opportunity to go and work for a paper-making company, Peter Dixon's. The company, I believe, arrived in Grimsby around 1906 and built a huge paper mill over the West Marsh. And of course, I lived over the West Marsh, so I grew up knowing a lot of people who worked there. Always wanted to work at Dixon's, but again, it was another one of these family companies where you got employment if your brother or your father worked there.
I got my job through the headmaster, and I went for an interview in the offices in Victoria Street, and in short trousers. I was 14, and I started on the 4th of January 1943.
Norman J. Smith, Scather, and I stayed there till I was about 23, and I had a 5-year apprentice. Used to go to night school 3 nights a week to the old Eleanor College, which is now in ruins in Eleanor Street, until they got the new college, what was built at Nuns Corner, open.
I started work proper when I joined Hewitt Brothers Brewery in the maintenance department in 1949. And at that time, the maintenance department premises were what is now behind the post office.
When we got to work in the mornings, often in the winter it was dark, So the first thing we had to do was to get a tilly lamp going. That was the light it, pumping up, get the pressure, get a light. Because we had no electric, because there was no electricity in the houses. There was no electric tools. All the tools was hand tools, basin bit with no electric whatsoever. So we had to get a light going in the winter. That was the first job.
About 1954, I think it was, when we moved lock, stock and barrel to premises in Ladysmith Road, which is now a tyre company next door to the Hollisloyer pub.
Well, when I first started work, it was very primitive, but now, God, it's a lot easier in every trade, every building trade. Them days, we didn't have, say, electricity, we didn't have power tools. Nowadays, every joiner's got power tools, electric, everything. They've got better clothing, better protective things. And them days, there was no protection, I say nothing. But now, I seem to have everything, virtually. I can't see how it can get any better.
You found that you had good weeks where the first week you'd be on certain packing benches, you'd have to learn to pack, stack, and then you got a job called baling. And on baling you'd pick 3 of these stacks up and put them onto another and wrap them. And it was all packing, it was all skill.
We built the Honestly, as I said, we built the Hainton Inn, we built the Bradley Inn, built the Swallow Inn, built the Rose and Crown, built all those pubs with our building department while I was there.
At the end of the 8-hour shifts, my fingers would be bleeding because obviously the paper, you'd rub your paper, rubbing your hands on the paper constantly. And I can remember having to wrap paper around my hands to try and stop my skin from actually rubbing raw. And it was just one of those things, you learned to do it. All the ladies tended to wrap paper around their fingers to protect them. You didn't have plasters then, it was all paper stickers. And I'd say it was a very, very skilled job.
But there's quite a history of Hewitt's family running different sorts of places, including the maltings that people forgot about on Victoria Street. They had a big maltings there where they malted all the barley to make the beer with. And
the reason for the closure, and I think a lot of people are still alive in Grimsby today will tell you, was the fire, the mill fire. And the day the fire took place, I was actually working at the mill. I think it's something like the 11th of September 1971. I know the day so well. And we was all in the finishing house. We started work at 8 in the morning and we had the fire alarms go off, and I've got to be honest, people thought it was just a general alarm because they went off quite regular. It got to about 5 to 9 and a group of us went for a break to the canteen, which was like a couple of floors away from the repack area. And as we walked through, this guy shouted out, sort of, "Get the hell out of here, the mill's on fire." We all rushed back to the factory and everybody was sort of alarmed. We didn't know what to do. We were like 4 stories up in this building, and the next thing, an alarm came out, evacuate.
Well, when you were a junior, you had to go down to the different mills to take the orders. As I say, we used to have these logs floating in the Alexandra dock and on the north side, and your job was to go down and take the instructions for the foreman, who was invariably with his gang on these rafts.
And I think what happened after that, I can remember about 4 or 5 days later, repack did open again, and because I was a shop steward there, I got the opportunity to go through to that part of the mill, and they showed me the damage that had been done. It was horrific. Went to the canteen where we were going that morning, and the wall of the canteen was no longer there. All the chairs were twisted and the tables, and I could see into the mill, and I did manage to take a couple of photographs showing you all the twisted wreck and the machine roof gone, and it was quite a touching occasion.
Importers of timber, we were merching timber, and we were creosoting. We had our own creosoting mills because we supplied mostly to the railway companies, and the whole business had to change when the railway company changed from wooden wagons to steel wagons, and from wooden sleepers to concrete sleepers.
And the jam factory was Ticklers. You could always smell it when you walked down Pasture Street, you know, when they were making it. Especially when they were doing marmalade, you could smell the oranges.
In the office, there's evidence he used to give to the House of Commons and House of Lords saying they needed a deep sea port on the south bank. Hence, you've got Immingham Dock. In fact, one of the stories is that Bennett supplied the timber sleepers or crossings, as it used to be called, for the relief of Khartoum. And it's certainly in the old books where he did supply the Egyptian government in those days.
A mate of mine did work there, Ticklers, but I never went in it because I was always frightened of the women outside, because there used to be set out with these terms on. There was right women, you know, maybe nice women now, but it was known as I forget what they used to call it, but there was right wild women.
There's a bit of doggerel, isn't there, somewhere in the town of Grimsby, the town of timber and cod. The Barkers speak only to Bennets, and Bennets speak only to God.
We used to go to Gatey at night, cafe dancing, the pier, every night dancing.
We used to go dancing, used to go to the Gaiety. And then when I was about 16, we used to go to Binbrook, to the aerodrome, or Errand there, you know, and they used to have dances every week. Bus used to pick us up in Old Marketplace.
To do the polyglide, you won't know what that is, surely. You know, surely you must have seen it on the telly, all the old-fashioned waltzes and...
Two-step waltzes, either three-step.
And of course, dancing, there were all the air places round us where the men came and you always had somebody to dance with. Well, you either went to the Gatey, didn't you, or, you know, where you went looking for lads, I suppose. I don't know. Well, you know, no, but I was saying, when then, the war was on, like I said, and, you know, you weren't sure to, you know, there were sailors, soldiers, Americans, and all this, that and the other, so, yeah, it was good. It was good.
We used to go out at nights to Cleethorpes. We used to go to the lifeboat, and at weekends the cafe dance and winter gardens.
The war was on, and I used to go to a lot of dances at Goxhill with the American dances and all that. So that's why I never had no money. That was it. I wasn't a bad girl though.
The Aycroft, the Hayloft we used to call it. It was above a premises down Lord Street, Aycroft Street, Hayloft, and Alexandra Road. We used to go to Alexandra Road. The Alex we used to call it.
It changed to the Mecca, Winting Road. Yeah, Winting Road and Willingham Street, I think, corner.
At the Mecca Dance Hall, and I worked there till probably about 19, I think. Yeah, I think 19. Fantastic job there. Met a lot of the stars, lots of fun, lots of things that went on there behind the scenes. And I used to work the lights, and I was a page boy as well. Used to have this little flat cap, and used to hate the damn thing. But people used to take great advantage going past and patting me on the head.
The first job I had was at the Winter Gardens.
Wonderful elderly gentleman, really nice, old school. And he gave me a little tip. He said, pad the inside with some newspaper, but before you do that, put some drawing pins in the top of your helmet. He said, they won't pat you on the head again. Quite serious. I mean, I used to come out throbbing headaches and all sorts, and they would never stop. They soon stopped after that.
We left the Winter Garden, my friend and I, and we went to the Beachcombe because the pay was better and it was a later start, which was better for me because it meant I could give my husband his tea before I went to work, you see. And they were all very friendly, and we're all of an age, you see. We're all out for the same thing. We're all, you know, leave the children with husbands and come out earning money at night.
Well, practically it wasn't the only one in Grimsby, but it was the biggest. Bob Walker's band, he was good. There was 2 or 3 other places to go dancing, but the Mecca was...
And we had the Who there, the Faces, Hollies, oh, blimey, Little Richard, a huge amount of stars.
When we had these dues, the Royal Hotel was run by Mr. and Mrs. Hodge, whose daughter is now a famous film actress, and Mrs. Hodge was a very attractive lady.
Is it Passion Alley? I used to cut through it to get to the toilet quicker.
Took some drinks into them, and Doctor Who was coming on. Oh, this is the sound. Do you like Doctor Who? Yeah. Well, sure, they're all coming. I got into trouble for this. I watched the full thing of Doctor Who. And they were avid fans, very knowledgeable of all the series, Keith Moon particularly. And I got on well with them, really good bunch of lads. And so Kane came out, of course, and they'd been looking to me, where the hell is he? The management were none too pleased, none too pleased. And Keith came out at that point when I was getting the dressing down, and he saved me some grief and aggro, because he said, oh, no, not our fault. We wanted him there to discuss things and bits and bobs. He said, we've kept him, it's our fault.
And I remember once I was walking past the chef, and they call these flats, these big silver flats with the meat all sliced up. And he says, do you want a flathead? I said, do you want a cauliflower ear? And it was just, you know.
Well, there was a time when I worked at the Mecca, in the bingo hall. And at New Year's Eve, I used to go and work behind the bar for the, New Year parties. We had some jolly good times then, yeah.
And then we used to do the boxing dinners, because they were all men, and most of the time they were smashing, I had a real good laugh with them. And one night this comedian came on, and it's a boxing dinner. I don't know if they've ever been to one, but they are blue, yeah. So I'd still got my coffee cups to clear off, same as we all had. And, this language, I thought, well, that's it, I'm going in the kitchen. So I went in the kitchen, made myself a cup of tea, sat drinking it. Jackson looms in, what are you doing here, Mrs. Wells? Because that was my name then. I said, I come to pay waitress. I said, I work as hard as you like, but I'm not paid to listen to that filth out there. He went straight out and fetched all the other waitresses in. But nobody had, stand. I thought, well, I'm going to walk out, they can do what they like. So if I get the sack, I'm not bothered. But he went and fetched them all in.
We had some jolly good times there. And of course, upstairs was what they called Tiffany's. And that was like a nightclub. And so sometimes the girls would have a night up there after work and have our own dancing and a drink, And I was one of the older ones, and so I was kind of mother to all the young lasses, and they kind of treated me as if I was the mother. We had some great times in Tiffany's.
A chap called Ernest Illingworth, who started as office boy and joined the army, First World War. Too young, but he got in and was sent to the Dardanelles. I can't repeat the stories he told me about. Oh yes, one of the stories was, he said the Turkish trenches were so close, only about 10 yards and 12 yards away. And he said we could hear them laughing and talking, he said, and they'd throw a Mills bomb over, we'd get out of the way and we'd throw a tin of Tippler's plum and apple jam, and they all screamed because they thought it was a bomb, and then they found it wasn't. Yeah.
Oh, one day they get me right. We had houses, when they used to build the new houses, they put the timber up for the roof, all the tiles was on. Put one night, my bike, when I was looking for it, where to go home, it was strung up in the top of this house. It was strung up on the bloody beams, and I had to go and get it down. Because, they did a lot of pranks and things them days,
Remember one incident, it was that cold that the dairyman who'd been milking, he was checking the churns, he lifted the top up, put the top down again, then he had to empty all the milk out because he'd lost his thumb end.
We did actually challenge the men to a game of netball, and because we had our netball team, and the fellas were a little bit rough, and I can remember, I think at the second half of the match I got squashed by 2 people wanting that to be my future husband that I didn't know at the time, and so they were a little bit rough, but we did win the netball match. Because of that, the guys then asked if we'd have a return football match. So you can imagine us girls getting out. We all borrowed football boots with the studs on, and at the end of the match they said never again. I can remember my husband saying, I don't think you ladies know what to do with the ball. You spent more time kicking us in the shins. And we didn't win the game, but we did have fun.
One morning I went out in such a rush, I thought, crikey, I haven't got my knickers on. I just quickly pushed them in my pocket because I used to wear these overalls. And when I got to the, start at serving, 6 bacon and eggs there, 5 bacon, eggs, beans and tomato, and you're in and out like a ferret, And I said, oh, I'm going to sneeze. And I got out and put me, and of course it was my pair of knickers, wasn't it? I put to my nose. Well, for months and months they called me Edna No-Nicks, and it went on for ages and ages,
Oh, we had some things, and then on another occasion, only one person saw this, Pauline, somebody actually flashed in the doorway. So this things goes on all over.
One of the odd things was that when we started Bell Petrol, we started with a little used tanker, 1,000-gallon Austin tanker, and our driver had run out of his hours that he was allowed to, and there were hours even in those days. And we'd promised for a bank holiday that we were going to deliver down to Cleethorpes, so a little garage down to Mr. Emerson. We were going to deliver his petrol. Well, we had to make sure it happens. So I jumped into the Austin tanker, and father escorting me in the Mark 7 Jaguar or whatever it was at the time, and we drove to Immingham Storage, and I loaded this petrol on board, and off we moseyed down, because we were going down to Sandilands for the weekend anyway, this bank. Well, I get within a mile of the place, and this tanker runs out of diesel. Never thought of filling it up. Now what do? We're a bit of a Charlie with this thing, with 1,000 gallons of petrol on the back, and this diesel tanker is running out. So father drove to Mr. Emerson, who came along in his Austin 16, put a tow rope in and towed the tanker onto his forecourt. But we had achieved it, we'd promised to deliver, and we did.
And I remember this foreman saying I had to go on the top of a building thing to get some cartons. And I was working with a girl, and I went up and took the cartons down, and he hit the bloody gaffer on the head, and he sacked me, and it's now my fault. And he sacked me, that I didn't go home.
I had one unfortunate accident where I don't suppose there's havoc now with all the safety things they have in place, but part of the job was lifting a big heavy plate up, putting rubber pieces in and putting it down again onto the mould. So, I had a bit of an upset, and I put the heavy plate down on my thumb, and it squashed it, and it went black, and I had to go to the doctors, which I don't know if the health and safety rules would allow him to do it now, but he got half a pair of scissors and put them under a gas flame, and he stuck it straight through my thumbnail, and the blood come up there, but it didn't half relieve it, and it was that was all right then.
Now they used to give us a cake, and a tin of biscuits and a pudding. But my 2 sisters were there as well, so we got 3 cakes, 3 puddings, and 3 tins of biscuits. Set us up till Easter.